Welcome. I am Shauna Straw, the 9th District PTA Treasurer for 2021 through 2023. I would also like to introduce Danae Sinise, the 9th District PTA Financial Secretary for 2021-2023. We will be going over the various tax filings for PTAs and PTSAs. Please note, I'm only going to use PTA, but this information applies to all PTAs and PTSAs. Your PTA will need to file the following. Oh, sorry, I don't want to read this to you. There are 3 agencies that require a filing. The IRS and the Franchise Tax Board are the same agencies that you, as an individual taxpayer, need to file with. And nonprofits also have to report to the California Attorney General's Office of Charitable Trusts. Most PTAs have a fiscal year of July 1st through June 30th. If you are not sure what your fiscal year is, please consult your PTA bylaws. If you don't know what those are or don't have a copy, please contact us at 9th District and we will get them to you. The due date for all of these filings is 4.5 months after the fiscal year ends. So if you're a July 1st through June 30 fiscal year, the filing deadline would be November 15th. If you are unable to file the return on time, you must file for an extension using an Internal Revenue Service Form 8868 before the filing deadline. This will allow your PTA 6 additional months to file your IRS return. This is an automatic extension for both the IRS and the Franchise Tax Board filings. If you request the extension, you will not have to pay the late fees as long as you file by the extended deadline. If you are mailing the 8868 on the last day, pay the additional charges or shipping fees to track the package so you have proof it was mailed on time. If the revenue is normally over $50,000, then we strongly, note that it is highlighted in red and underlined, suggest you pay someone familiar with nonprofit tax filings to complete these forms. All right. So what do you need to do to get ready to do this? Hopefully the treasurer has been categorizing income and expenses and the budget has been kept up to date, so this is not a difficult task. The annual financial report is the same thing as the budget to actual that has information for the entire fiscal year. Every deposit and expense is assigned a budget category and the gross amounts need to be calculated. So if your PTA buys t-shirts for $10 and then sells them for $10, the gross income is $10, the gross expense is $10, and the net proceeds are $0. So again, it seems like you didn't make any money, but you still need to track those as 2 different things. You can visit the California State PTA website and enter annual financial report into the search box, and you can find a sample. So here it's a little fuzzy, but here is the sample of an annual financial report. Note that the receipts not belonging is the pass-through. This is not counted in the gross revenue. This is probably not a substantial amount, but depending on how many members you have that join the manual way, meaning not through Totem, this could be a lot. If you have entered in everything, this number is the gross receipts that you will use to determine which filing to complete. Okay, so you have an annual financial report in hand, and now you can figure out which form is required. Again, gross receipts is adding up all of the money deposited during the 12-month fiscal year minus any of the pass-through the PTA may have had. Pass-through, again, is the per capita that is forwarded to your council or 9th District if you're out of council. Normally, so what does normally mean? Normally means an average of the last 3 years of gross receipts. This has become very important to calculate during the COVID years because many PTAs have had wild swings in their revenue since 2019. Look at past annual financial reports to determine what the correct report is. You can see that there is a 990EZ, but this form is not in any way easy. Spelled EASY. So again, please hire someone to complete the form for the PTA if it is required. So what we're going, and then again, for the 199 for the California Franchise Tax Board, it is the same numbers. So again, same deadlines. If you're more than 50,000, you have to do the more complete form. The one thing to stress for this, regardless of how you're doing this, there is a box that asks for filing fees on the 199. Tell your tax person because you're filling out that form, you should have a tax person. PTAs are exempt for paying any of the filing fees. So that is something we have been granted. So don't let them tell you you owe the Franchise Tax Board money. But unfortunately, you will be owing the Attorney General money, no matter how much money you're grossing. The Registry of Charitable Trusts is the most complicated of the 3 filings and has changed the most in the last 3 years. New as of January 1st, 2022, all RRF-1 filings have at least a $25 fee. If you find a form somewhere online or in a box or whatever that does not have a fee of some sort for all levels of income, you're not using the right form and they're going to reject it. Also new in the last 3 years is the requirement that the RRF-1 has some form of additional information filed with it. If the PTA has filed the 990EZ or the full 990, then the amounts from those reports will be used to complete the RRF-1, and a copy of the 990 will be sent in with the RRF-1. If the PTA files the 990N, the e-postcard, which is for less than 50,000, then the PTA will need to complete the CTTR1 and use those numbers to complete the RRF-1, and will send the CTTR1 in with the report, the RRF-1. Okay. So we're going to start with, we're going to go through the steps of how to file the 990N, which is the form used for PTAs with gross receipts, normally $50,000 or less. You have an annual financial report in your hand and you have averaged it with the last 3 years of gross receipts, and you know this is the form that is required. If your PTA hasn't done anything out of the ordinary in the last 3 years, then you don't have to do that. But if you think you're on the cusp, or it has been kind of a roller coaster with your income, then look at that, because it might help you do an easier form. If the average, okay, and again, if the average is 50,000, is greater than 50,000, we strongly recommend that you contact a tax preparer that is familiar with nonprofits to complete the tax filings. If you are watching this recording and you determine that you will not be filing the 990N, you can fast forward to the section on the Charitable Trust Registrations Renewal Form. Because you will not be doing this part, but you would still need to make sure that RRF gets filed. And a lot of tax preparers don't necessarily, they're used to dealing with businesses, not necessarily nonprofits, so they may not be aware that that is required. Okay. So first, you need your annual financial report, which we've already talked about having in hand. Again, you should have your bylaws. It will have the various government ID numbers assigned to your PTA, not just for this report, but for all of them. And I mean, if you can't find your bylaws, don't know what I'm talking about, again, contact us at 9 District and we will reunite you with your bylaws. The school address should be on the front of the bylaws. So that should be, you should confirm that that is part of what you have. All right. The last page of this presentation will have all the links. So you'll have those at the end. The IRS has changed the login process since last year. If you previously had an account to prepare 990Ns, it may not work. So factor that in if you need to go online and get that created again. And if you don't have one, make sure you don't be there at midnight, 11 p.m. on the November 15th, trying to frantically click buttons. Either way, it is important to note that you fill out all of this information with your personal information. This is the hardest part of filing the 990N, is getting the login. You'll sign up for an account as Betty Volunteer, not Sunshine PTA. You will use your own social security number and your own mailing address. None of this information is shared with the PTA. There should not be a login that is handed down from one PTA person to the next. It is a secure system, so you should feel comfortable giving the IRS your information in order to complete the 990N. So the first screen, once you've gotten in, so you've all done whatever you needed to do to get a login, if this is the first time you're using it for this PTA, you will go to the Manage ePostcard profile, and when you first sign up for this system, it doesn't ask you which organization you're going to work with. So this is where you're going to enter the PTA's EIN, which is the employer identification number. If you are returning to file another 990N for the same PTA or to check on the status, so you're going to start with the Manage ePostcard. And then if you're just coming back, you can do the Manage Form 990N submissions. Okay, so again, we're assuming this is the first time for this PTA. So you're going to add the EIN. I've already, I actually got one once you've done this a couple times for more than one PTA, you start getting a very long list. But they all will say PTA, California Congress of Parents, Teachers, and Students. And that's because all PTAs in California go by our parent name first for IRS purposes. The actual name of the PTA comes after this long name, and we will type it in as a doing business as name in a few slides. So you're going to type in the EIN in the top. And then, yes, okay, adding a new, and then create new filing, yes. You're going to use the drop-down menu now to once you've gotten started. Oops, now I'm going the wrong way. There we go. And you're going to get here to the organization details page. You can only file for the current year with this system in the IRS. If you need to backfile, contact California State PTA's Tax Filing Support Center on their website for sites that provide this service. The tax year ending box will already be pre-populated. You won't be able to change that. It's always whatever the last fiscal year was. So in this example, yeah, June 30th of 2022. And then you're going to answer these questions. Did you go out of business? Probably not. Hopefully not. Are your gross receipts less than 50,000? You're going to, on average, you're going to say yes. Again, you cannot change the legal name, and you cannot change the EIN number, but you should verify that you did end up in the right place, because it will be hard to tell by the name. All right. And then you're going to hit continue. The next section is the contact info. So this is where you would include your doing business as name, DBA name. So we've got Springfield Elementary. You're going to add the school's address on here. And if you have a website for your unit, feel free to add that here as well. Not required, but if you have it, you could. The principal officer's information, you should specify that it's a person, not a business. Your principal officer is the president or the treasurer, not your principal. So, and you can use the school address for this. This is available to the public. So, you know, if you want to put your personal mailing address on there, that's your choice, but the school address is fine. And then you're going to click Submit Filing. There will be a warning basically saying are you ready to submit? You can't go back and change anything. You're going to hit OK. And then, now it's going to say it's pending. So you've already finished submitting it. You're going to, you definitely want to print a copy of this. This is going to be the only opportunity you have to print this particular screen. So you want to do that. I often print to PDF, but if you have paper to print it to, that's fine too. And then you're going to go to the Manage Form 990 submissions after you've printed. All right, and then now it's going to take you back to this screen. So you can log out and come back to this. It's going to tell you have to wait 7 minutes. I just recently did this. It took me 5 minutes from logging into the IRS until I got to this screen. So that's how fast you can, again, you got to get that login. But once you do that, it should be very fast. If you can refresh it, you can log out and come back in and do that manage submissions to double check, but just don't forget to come back and check. Once it does say accepted, you're going to click on the long number there, the submission ID number. So yeah, once it says accepted, and then now you'll get this screen. And now you want to print this one as well, because this confirms, the other one confirms you submitted it, and this one confirms that it was accepted. I don't have fancy Adobe that will merge files. It's perfectly okay for your own records to print out 2 pieces of paper, but you'll see in a minute, one of the things we want you to do is upload this into PTEZ. And we only have one spot for this form. So I've been using the screenshot thing and putting 2 images into a Word document. You can be very creative as to how, if you actually have the scanner to be able to scan 2 pieces of paper in, but ideally you want both that submitted and accepted screen in the same file for your records. All right, and so yes, ideally, get a copy, put a copy in the president's files, put a copy with the secretary's files, present a copy at your NEC executive board. And it is the entire board's responsibility to make sure these types of things are done, even though the treasurer is supposed to be taking care of it. So if you are not the treasurer, or in the future, if you're on a board and you're not the treasurer, be sure to ask, did we file our tax returns? This is supposed to be part of the audit as well. This is one of the questions that the audit checks to make sure that this was done. All right, questions. And those of you that missed my initial part, if you want to raise a virtual hand, because we are recording this more for people to watch and pause and fill out as they go. I may have you email me later if the question's too specific, but you have something real quick that seems crazy.
So that was part 1 of 3 parts?
Correct. That was the easiest filing. Normally I do this in the opposite order, but we're teasing you with how easy it is, and then we're going to get into the hard stuff. But usually I start with the hard stuff and save this easy one for last. But that's as quick as it gets. All right, so the next one, no other questions? Okay. All good in the chat, Danae? Okay.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so how to file a 199N postcard. So again, ideally, you might be doing this all at the same time, so you'd still have your annual financial report, you'd have a copy of your bylaws, and you'd know your school's complete address. Again, if you can't find your bylaws, you can contact our office at 9thdistrictpta.org, all spelled out or you can call us. All of that information is on our website. Okay, so there is a direct link to this on the California State PTA Tax Filing Support Center page. You can also just Google the 199N postcard and it will look like this. They do time you out after 20 minutes, so kind of be ready. It's, again, not that complicated, but if you get up and walk away because a kid has done something in the other room, it will eventually log you out and you'll have to start over again. All right, so this login page, this is going to be your corporate code or business number. And again, it's in your bylaws. It usually starts with an 8. It's a 7-digit number that helps you identify what's different about it. And then you have to do the CAPTCHA thing to prove you're not a robot. Okay. So this one, oh yeah, here we go. And then log in. So this one this should actually have your real PTA name in it. The state of California does recognize our actual name, unlike the IRS. So it'll be that number, entity ID number, and that's one way you'll know you did the right entity ID number, because your PTA name should pop up. All right, so this one is different than the IRS, that you can go back and file previous years, which means you need to be more careful that you get the correct year in here. It won't do it for you. So, and Danae and I, and Susan actually, help lots of other PTAs file back things. And this is my biggest problem. I forget what year it is. So I usually have something printed in front of me of exactly what years I'm working in. So most schools, again, are July 1st through June 30th. And if you do have old 199s to file, you can use this site. Okay. So gross receipts, again, it's going to ask this this new stuff. Are you a new unit? You'd only ever answer this question once. So if you've already been in existence for a while, that would be a no. Hopefully you, again, did not disband or go out of business, so that would also be a no. You should not have changed your fiscal year unless you did it with us with a bylaws change. So most of the time that would be no, almost always, unless you actually know that you sent in bylaws to change your fiscal year. So again, this is going to be your gross receipts off your annual financial report. You don't need, it won't accept it with change, so just round to the nearest dollar. And again, gross is your receipts before deducting expenses. And amended would mean maybe you realized you missed a whole month of bank statements or something and you had to change this. So for some reason you needed to change it. This would be an amended form. So most of the time that should be no. You do not have an IRS form pending. It's for a nonprofit that has not already received their 501c3 status. And then you're gonna click continue at the bottom of the page. Here's where you're going to add in, oh, interesting. So he has you do, okay, well, you can enter in the DBA name as our parent name. I usually leave that blank, but that's probably a really good idea. And this would be where you enter in that federal ID number. And then again, if you do have a website, feel free to enter that in. Not required, but he's got more arrows than I do. Okay, so mailing address. So put in the mailing address of the school, and PTA treasurer can be helpful to put in the attention box. If they do actually send mail, maybe it'll make it to you. Again, the principal officer is either the president or the treasurer, and they can use, again, their own name, but this will be, well, actually this is probably not findable because we can never find these forms again. So you could put your own mailing address in there, but again, you could just use the school address. And it actually has the nice check if it's the same as above, so then you don't even have to type it a second time. And then this part is the whoever's actually doing the form, which it may not be the principal officer. Again, when I help people do this, I usually put my name in this box and definitely put a phone number. I have never had anybody call me from the Franchise Tax Board, so it seems to be safe. And then you should review it before you submit it. Make sure you entered everything correctly. Again, you're going to swear that to the best of your knowledge and belief, this is correct for the organization, and that you have the right to be filing it, which we're usually pretty happy somebody's doing it. So I'm not sure we would ever not want somebody to do this, but. All right, this is the most exciting page of this whole entire thing, because if you do not print it right here, you will never see this piece of paper again. So, or this screen, we cannot get back to this. So, and we get updates like once a year about what the Franchise Tax Board has received. So quadruple check that you've actually printed this before you leave this screen, because this will be your only chance. And make sure you, so then, and again, same thing, make sure you print a copy for the records. Make sure you upload a copy into MyPTEZ. And it is the entire board's responsibility to make sure this form is also filed. All right. Any other earth-shattering questions about the Franchise Tax Board?
I have one question, and this could be super basic. When you said like, make sure you're filing for the right tax year, we are filing for the school year 2021 to 22, correct? And that's like, so does the IRS consider that 2021?
It will, the date that was on the IRS page will be the last day of your fiscal year. So that's why it said June 30 of 2022, because
Okay.
that's the immediate last year.
I
And then the franchise, it depends on which, like, again, we sometimes go in and have to file old ones. But yes, if you are sitting down tomorrow to do this and you're doing last year's tax filing, it would be, and you are a July 1, June 30 fiscal year, it would be July 1 of 2021 through June 30th of 2022.
And that you described me to a T. I am going to do this tomorrow before I forget.
Excellent. The recording won't quite be ready yet, but probably not till Monday. So, all right, excellent. So now on to the fun one. Dun, dun, dun. All right. So again, can't stress this enough. The RRF1 form is required for all PTAs. For now, as of January 1st, everybody has to pay something. So $0 to $50,000 in gross receipts is a $25 fee. $50,000 to $100,000 in gross receipts is greater than $50,000 is $50, and then over $100,000 is $75. So if you have less than 50,000 and you filed the 990N, then you have to create the CTTR1. Okay. So we're going to start with the RRF because this is the one that everybody has to do. And this is the RRF form as of January 1st, 2022. Again, if it does not list a fee for every gross receipts amount, you are not using the right form. And they will kick it back at you and probably not tell you for months. So make sure you have that. All right, so there is an annotated form you can use, again, on the California State PTA's tax filing center page. So this is very helpful to tell you exactly what to do with this. So everyone files the RRF1 and the split is that $50,000 mark. So if you're less than that, you're going to create the CTTR1. If you're more than that, you're going to use the numbers off of the 990 that you filed and attach it. So again, every RRF will have something that goes with it. All right, and there's those $25 renewal fees. And again, if you find out that you have missed a year, then you still have to use, even if you're filing for 2015, 2016, you still have to use this form, and now you have to pay that fee of what it is from that gross receipts for that year. Okay, and then whether or not you enter these numbers on this Part A depends on which form you've filed. So you may see it says if the 990N was filed, get the amount from the CTTR1. If you use the IRS form, EZ, then you'll use line 9. So it's very specific about where to get those numbers. So it's actually, if you did pay someone to do the 990, this is a very easy form to fill out, because you're just pulling those numbers off of another tax filing and sticking them into these boxes. Okay, so all of these boxes are typically no, except if there was theft or mismanagement, you would check yes. If you think you need to check this box, we should have already heard about it from you at 9th District. So please don't check this box yes without talking with somebody at 9th District or knowing that you've already talked to us. Number 4 is contracting with a company to run a fundraiser. Apex Fund Runs are the best example of this that I've seen recently. Basically, you invite them in, they run the whole entire jogathon, and they cut you a check at the end of the day. If you've contracted with a company to have the PTA volunteers sell something, say wrapping paper or cookie dough, that is not the same thing because your volunteers are still doing all of the work for that sell. So this is pertaining to paying a company to doing everything. And those companies like Apex Fund Run is registered with the Attorney General's office. So they have to be registered. Number 6 is for raffles. If you're gonna check this box, make sure there was a raffle registration on file with the Attorney General and be sure to complete that report as well. And finally, what number is this? This is number 8. The PTA should absolutely be conducting twice yearly audits, but you would still check no because our audit process does not conform to generally accepted accounting principles. So we definitely do audits, but we don't do this kind of an audit. So that's why we cannot check yes. So the form needs to be signed, dated, and a reminder that organizations that do not file this form can ultimately be suspended. Fines are assessed and there is no abatement for the fines. Once they send you that invoice, you are on the hook for that. And in fact, the notice actually states that the organization is not allowed to pay the fines. It should be paid by the officers of the organization. So something to keep in mind. Don't get behind on this. Okay. So that's the RRF one. So if you filed the really long forms, one of them, then you'd be done with this part. So this is moving on to the CTTR one. If my tip for you for this, you can see the little blue highlights on this example. This is actually a fillable form. But if you do download either this one or the RRF one as fillable, make sure you open it with Adobe, because otherwise it won't do the math for you. You can see the total boxes here don't have the little blue highlighting, because if you're doing this in Adobe, it will add all this together and bring it down for you. But if you try and open it in a web page and fill it out, you're just going to be stuck with this blank that you can't do anything with. So that's a fun tip. I've seen a lot of these forms where people have handwritten in the total because they can't get it to do anything. So there's a fun tip for you. Insider tip. Okay, also a annotated form on the California State PTA website for the Tax Filing Center. This is actually just a infomercial for the California State PTA Tax Filing Center. Again, you're just going to enter in your identifying information and the year that you're working on. So this first part, this is the balance sheet portion. So this is, your assets and liabilities. So assets, cash is the easiest part. How much is in all of the everyday accounts on the last day of the fiscal year? That's usually a PTA's biggest asset, is what money is in the bank. If you do have a separate savings account, go ahead and separate it out. So those would be all of your funds by the time you got there. Very few PTAs have investments, but if you did, those would be separated out. You probably don't own land or buildings. If you do, again, you might want to have a conversation with somebody at 9th District. That can be a little much to keep track of. But you might have some other assets, spiritware, if you bought a whole bunch. And again, it's what you have on hand on June 30th or whatever your fiscal year end date is. You might own a storage unit on campus, but it should be something significant. And then you should not have any liabilities. We're not usually stringing people along. We pay them cash and they don't owe us money, or so if you think you might have liabilities, again, contact us, but that should be very, very unusual, if like never. Okay, now we're getting into the really fun stuff. So this is where your annual report comes in handy. And again, this annotation helps tremendously. We actually recorded this same presentation 2 years ago when this CTTR1 first came out, and I used it for 6 months. I would just fast forward to the section on this CTTR1 and I would stop it and follow along, because we didn't really have the annotated form readily available. It was much easier for me to just use the video. So this is a great resource. And again, if your annual financial report is complete, you can just pick those categories and figure out where they go. The revenue amount might total to a different amount because you're adding in non-cash contributions. This would be an example is if you're doing a jogathon and the grocery store donates a case of water to you, or 5 cases of water. That would be a non-cash donation. So you might want to find a way to track that during the calendar or during your fiscal year, so that you don't get to August of next year and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't remember what the heck we've gotten. So that's kind of a new thing to track that we haven't really talked about before the last 3 years. And on the expense side, most of your PTA expenses will probably fall under other. And for any of these other categories, other expenses, other revenue, you would attach a third piece of paper that would then just break it down, and it'd just make a heading with the same, it could just be in a regular Word document or on, and just use the heading of either revenue, other revenue, and itemize things, and then they should add up to whatever number you put on this form. Okay. So the easy way to do this, which may seem counterintuitive, is to print out whatever you need and stick it in an envelope with a check and mail it to the address in the upper left corner of the RRF1. You should send it in registered mail to make sure it made it, but everybody is sending a check, so your canceled check will give you a heads up that they received the filing. Be sure to write the CT number, the charitable trust number, on the memo line of the check, so it is credited to the correct PTA. Filing online is faster, but you will need to find the login information. A postcard was sent to the PTA at some point. If no one has the postcard, this is actually hey, you have a postcard, how exciting. That's the postcard, and nobody else can probably see this. I may have to, hang on. Do you mind if we show that again, Shauna? Because that's perfect. Hang on, I don't even know how to highlight you. Hang on. There we go. All right, fabulous. Okay, now I need to make it go back. Okay, I'm gonna go back to my screen. Thank you. So that is what the postcard looks like. See, I don't even know where ours is. You can send an email to them asking for a new login, but again, that's gonna slow things down. Be sure you're gonna have to upload either the PDF of the long 990EZ, or a PDF of the CTTR1, and a PDF of the other page, if you have that too. Actually, it'd probably be better to put those in the same file. So you'd have to have that prepared. I would suggest you still fill out the RRF, so you have that to refer to when it asks you those questions, because you're gonna give it answers to those exact same questions. And then you would use the ACH form in the toolkit to get authorization to pay the ACH from your bank account. So it'll definitely get it to them faster, but it is a little clunky. And here is where you would find that. So if you go to the Office of the Attorney, oag.ca.gov, and then charities. So there's the actual website. This registry verification search, this is how you would actually look to make sure you are current. You type in the name or one of the numbers, and then if it says current, you would be eligible to file this using the online system. which is under the annual, back to that main page for charities, be the annual registration renewal. And then from that page, you go on to the online renewal system. So it's not even that easy to find on here. Okay, so that was that. A bunch of pages here. So again, same things. Please keep copies in your records, especially, you know, once you mail it, because if they tell you they can't find it, you may have to reproduce it again. And you don't want to have to do that more than once. And again, make sure you've told your executive board that it definitely got filed, and everybody asks about that and might even ask to see it. So, all right.
Yeah.
Any,
We do have some questions in the chat.
oh, fabulous.
The first one is, are gift card donations considered non-cash contributions?
Yes, I think. Did it say that in the annotated? I may have to go back and look at my annotated form. Gift basket.
Cards is in the top one, right?
Donations. Ah, it does say gift cards. Yes, so that's considered cash. I was going to say gift cards are considered cash.
Right, yes.
So, and this would be, this is a way to, you know, use those to give away as prizes. And so that is a legitimate use of a donated gift card. So, yes, it would be in the cash contributions category.
And then the other question is, for non-cash contributions, are we required to provide a receipt?
I don't think so. No, I mean, you're basically just writing this down and declaring it. If you might want to give some sort of acknowledgement to whoever gave it to you and say thank you. I believe there is in the toolkit, there's a like acknowledgement that you can use to thank people that have donated. There is, if individuals donate to you, there is a threshold where you have to acknowledge the gift if it's, you know, non-cash. I think it's $250, but not 100% certain on that. Is there more?
Those are the two in the chat.
Okay.
If the non-cash contributions are not captured in your PTEZ books and system, so if you get $10 of bottled water or whatever, then you're not going to get the same totals in total revenue. Is that correct?
Correct. And again, you know, it depends on how complicated it becomes. If, you know, you might even want to add a line or a little box on, you know, or a second page to your treasurer's report, so that is kept, you know, you don't lose it mid-year, or, you know, whatever. If you have a Google Drive where you start a spreadsheet and other people can see it, you know, that might be a way to keep track of that. It may, like I said, it may be as simple as it's 3 cases of water, and that's not that hard to remember, but you are correct. It would not totally match your annual financial report.
So should you put it into the formal records, or do you?
I mean, again, yeah, maybe mention it at a meeting so it ends up in the minutes so that you are acknowledging that you received it, but I wouldn't worry about trying to get it into accounting software unless you're getting, you know, gobs of which I can't even imagine. Maybe they donated an entire garden to you or something. That might be something that might get kind of big. But I think even those kind of things, I usually do a cash donation. So then that would be captured in your cash contributions.
Okay.
Does that non-cash cash contribution, does that throw you over the $50,000 threshold or no?
No.
Okay.
I'm going to say no, because I don't think you just do cash.
Okay. But if you had been receiving large grants and they had been paying, like the money went into your PTA, then that does throw you over the 50,000.
Yes, anything that goes
Yeah.
into your PTA bank account would definitely be. And again, if you're getting interesting things that are bumping you up against that 50,000 consistently, then you might want to pay somebody to make
Yes.
sure you're doing all of this correctly. So,
Well, unfortunately, our PTA does not have that problem. So
well, it's a good and a bad problem, but yeah, I mean you know, one example is, you know, we're normally a $35,000, $40,000 PTA, and one year, you know, Danae is feeling extremely generous, so she gives us $25,000. So then that 1 year we've bumped up over 50, but then the year after that, we're going to go back to 35 or 40. So, you know, that would be normally, you don't have to change the type of forms you're filing for that. But if you're consistently right up and kind of bouncing around 50, you probably should be paying somebody just to make sure you're not missing anything. And again, it takes the weight off of your treasurer to try and, you know, figure that out. Any other?
Yeah, I was gonna say, especially if your PTA has multiple accounts, that might add to the reason why you would want to have an accountant do that for you.
All right. Any other burning questions? All right, so I'm going to say goodbye to our recorded people, or our people watching the recording, sorry. And go ahead and stop. Say thank you and good luck with your filings.